What's going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be going back and having a look at the Hasbro Inhumanoids. This is the leader of the Inhumanoids, Metlar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get some measurements going for Metlar, the leader of the Inhumanoids. If you count the tip of his fiery spike, Metlar stands at 15 inches in height. Initially, I was going to have a look at the leader of the Inhumanoids first and foremost, but couldn't resist having a look at Decompose because he's my all-time favorite of the Inhumanoids. But we are having a look at Metlar now, and now that we have done the height of the measurements of how tall this figure is, some other comparisons for height, we can bring in little Augur. Augur stands, well, he's about the same height as the top of Metlar's legs. So you can see that these figures are considerably tall, some of which being the tallest of the figures that were released in toy stores for a toy line, really. The Inhumanoids were some of the biggest. What to say about Metlar? Well, he is the leader of the Inhumanoids, the dweller of the fiery depths, and he was a really neat-looking character. I always liked the fact that he would be able to pull fire out from his mouth and throw these giant fireballs at the members of Earth Corps or the Redwoods, or basically anyone that was trying to stand in his way. As it goes for a figure, he's a little on the difficult side is best way to describe it for getting him to stand. Unlike the other Inhumanoids that stand perfectly forward, Metlar's legs, if I spin it to the side slightly, you can see, has a slight bend in it, whereas this leg here is completely straight. So the whole purpose of displaying this guy, you have to have one leg in front of the other, and if that front leg is a little on the loose side, which lone tier mine is, the figure does have problems standing at times, sometimes falling forward. This leg is very, very loose. There's not really a whole lot that's connecting the legs to the lower sockets of the torso. So ultimately, it just means that the leg does get a little loose over time. Having a look at his face, it is really neat looking. He does have the light piping. In this case, the light entering its way into the fiery point at the top lights up the areas of his front teeth here. Got some nice detailing, primarily a figure that's really relegated to a very kind of caramel brown, and he's got some silver here on the front of this of his torso, which I love the scales that they've added to the figure itself. It's got some nice texturing choices here. It's a little weird here where, you know, it separates from the rest of the silver, but otherwise it's a really neat looking sculpt. It's almost a shame, really, that the paint on these aren't better than what they are, because there's so much detail that's put into the skin, the face, the torso, that when you really just have it with one color palette, in this case, this was probably just molded in this caramel color, but they didn't really paint anything on here, so all these little details get lost over the course of time. It's almost got like this elephant skin, and he's got these little scales all over here. Even if the coloring is all supposed to be consistently this brown, a little bit of extra paint could have gone a long way just to kind of make some of those little details stand out. But it goes to show, though, like if you think about a toy in the process making stages, not really the production stages where these guys are eventually released to stores, but to think that somebody probably would have cast these from a clay mold, so somebody would have gone in and very finely sculpted all these little creases and crevices. It's really, it's a feat that I feel often gets overlooked when you are looking at a toy, even like a vintage toy. Pick up a G.I. Joe from time to time, or pick up, in this instance, a Metlar, and like look at the close details on that, and think that somebody probably would have gone in there and sculpted that by hand. So it really does speak to the care and quality that they would have put back in the day to these toys. Even unfortunately, if the construction of this guy is a little on the weak side, he really does have some really neat design elements. We spin him around, And he's got these protruding spikes and this very, very noticeably hunch sort of hump on the back of his torso here. But again, he's got these really cool details that almost get lost amongst the mix of just the silver plastic that they've used. There's the stamping here on the back that has the 1986 Hasbro. Indicates to you when exactly this was made. Posability on this guy, if we can overlook the fact that he is a little on the loose side, his head rotates left and right. He does feel he doesn't feel as hollow, for example, as Decomposed, but he does feel still hollow. Tendril, I think, fares the best for feeling just like a substantial plastic piece, whereas Decomposed is probably the worst. Metlar's kind of in the middle of it. His arms rotate all the way around, and it does feel like these joints allow the arms to hinge outward. Like this arm here works a little bit better than the other, where it will actually hold the hinge outward. You got also the rotations in the hands, which is probably a little easier to demonstrate on this one hand. The hands do rotate, like so. He does almost kind of, especially in like the feet section, if I was just to show a screenshot like of this, or even like the hands, you would almost think it's the Rancor from Return of the Jedi. And then going back to the legs that we've already discussed before, very loose. This one leg not as bad, but I think it benefits because this particular leg, if I flip it around, there's this plastic piece right here where the leg seems to want to stop against it. That actually works better because it helps the figure stand a little bit better. This other leg is just left to its own devices, and it's just really, really loose. So ultimately, you just have to kind of move the leg, hope that everything stays together, and hopefully, fingers crossed, he doesn't topple over. Now that, of course, I've said that, reaching off camera as my voice goes off to the distance for a second, here he is next to the other Inhumanoid that we just recently looked at, Decompose. Metlar is considerably taller, a little bit fuller as well, a little more finished, whereas Decompose felt a little frailer, a little more on the hollow side. Metlar here, for example, does feel like he's a little bit more substantial in comparisons. We will then be looking at Tendril in the next video, and then hopefully, if I can fit all three of these in frame, we're going to do a comparison of all three of these, and then we'll do some comparisons with the Earth Core members as well. If memory serves me correctly, and it doesn't always as I'm getting a little older in age, I do remember mentioning in the Decomposed video that I remember seeing Metlar in toy stores. Now this wasn't around the time that Inhumanoids was hitting the shelves. This would have been maybe several months, even a year later. And they had one lone Metlar sitting on the bottom shelf of Toys R Us, and he was marked down to about $10. And at the time that I saw him, I thought I should have picked him up, and ultimately didn't. And I kind of regret that choice ever since, as he really is a neat looking piece. He kind of is that kind of fragment of a time capsule of the youth that I certainly had, or the time that I had as a youth growing up collecting toys. You of course had the smaller scale vehicles and smaller scale characters, but then every once in a while toy lines and toy companies would really wow toy collectors by releasing big pieces. They did it with Star Wars, they did it with G.I. Joe, they did it with Transformers, and they did it here with Inhumanoids. From strictly speaking, just figure standpoint, from figures on their own, the Inhumanoids were one of the largest pieces that you could find in toy stores. I mean, they really towered over, and these were like fun pieces that if you had also G.I. Joes, you could really have an even bigger monster battle, as you'd had the towering Inhumanoids fighting the smaller G.I. Joes, which I might have done a little bit here and there when I was growing up. He is a little on the dated side. He doesn't look as cool, I have to admit, as he does in the cartoon, but still Metlar is the leader of the Inhumanoids, and if you're going to collect the other two, you might as well get the leader as well. Today's retro video, we were going back in time to 1986. What were you guys doing in 1986? Let me know down below in the comments section. And also, let me know in the comments section if you ever owned this toy growing up. I would love to hear your thoughts, maybe now as an adult, reliving your childhood, talking about some of the toys that you had growing up. But today, though, we were having a look at Metlar. We're also going to have a look at the Tendril Inhumanoid. He's going to be coming up in the next review, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these retro goodies. Actually, the only reason why we're having a look at these is because I was doing some cleaning up of my storage closet, my little storage area where I keep all my older toys. And I came across a box of Inhumanoids stuff, and I thought, wow, I haven't looked at Inhumanoids since, well, years since I actually looked at the toy line initially. I thought it was a good time to dust off the toys, literally and figuratively, and have a look at them again on this channel. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this as much as I'm enjoying shooting these reviews. It's a blast from my past. Hopefully it's a blast from your past as well. All of this can be happening though, guys, if you hit that little subscribe button down below if you haven't already had a chance to do so, as certainly more videos will be coming soon. We're going to be having a look at some other vintage toys, and of course we're going to be having a look at some new toys as well. Either way, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you guys next time.